Hey guys, we're here with day 30, and make sure you have these notes out. We would have started those yesterday, and we're moving on to inflation. So, just as a reminder, um, when you see green, that's telling you where to write stuff. So, special terms. Um, Obviously, we're going to go hopefully left to right here. So, special terms, you'll write those things in there. First things first, let's go ahead and write some things for your daily blog. Take a second, kind of a quick review of how to do some percentages. Okay, so take a second and go ahead and get those figured out. Um, Percentages are a little bit are pretty easy once you do them, and they might need to be reminded. Notice for all of these, I've changed the price by $6. Okay, just to kind of prove a point. So the amount of money it went up was $6. What you do is you need to take the difference divided by the original. So you got 6 over 100, and then multiply that by 100. In that case, it's going to be 6%. Okay. For the second one, you've got 6 divided by 60 times 100 is 10. Yes, 10%. And for the last one, you've got 6 divided by 300, and that one is going to be 2%. Okay. So anyway, those are some simple ways to do that. Again, you don't necessarily need to know how to do that on a test, but you do want to know that again, just how much it goes up is affected by, and the percentage is affected by what the original price was. Okay, so hopefully you listed some things that can cause prices to go up. Real simple. We have a decrease in supply of stuff. We have an increase in demand for stuff. If you threw in the government printing more money, that's pretty good too. Okay, so we're going to talk these. I'm going to respect your time. I'm going to go fast. Don't be afraid to pause the video to write stuff down. Okay, so our special terms, we have some um, for inflation. Sorry, we have creeping inflation, which is normal. Okay, prices have gone up by average about 3.5% since 1914. So that's considered pretty normal. I would say 3.5% is probably a little bit high, but that's the average. Okay, we've had way more times of way higher inflation rather than way low inflation. And if you look at your notes, you'll see that I put like a normal inflation rate is 1 to 3%. Maybe 1 to 2.5% is a little more accurate. But again, you don't have to know those exact numbers. Okay. If we have extremely high inflation, with some economies have experienced what was referred to as hyperinflation. Those of you familiar with the 1920s and 1930s in Germany leading up to World War II, they experienced hyperinflation where the price of money was so um, unvaluable, that people were basically burning it as firewood. And in those types of situations, keep in mind that it's kind of it's caused by a couple things. And so not only do I know my money's going to lose its value, and that prices are going to go up tomorrow, for example. So what happens is I rush to spend my money as fast as possible, and that creates even more price problems in the long run. Because again, I'm rushing to spend my money so fast, and so is everyone else, that we're constantly spending it. Okay, and that's not necessarily a good thing because we think that the prices are going to go up tomorrow. And then if prices go down, we have this term deflation. Okay, we also can say negative inflation. We kind of went over how it's figured is we have it's the percentage increase in the price level of goods and services. Okay, so we went over how to do that in the daily blog. Um, if you look up certain things and you look in the right places, you can find all these statistics. In this particular case, they've been keeping these inflation statistics since about 1913, 1914. And again, we don't have to have this memorized at all, but you can see the year over here. Obviously, this is the annual percentage increase. These are all monthly. The big thing you'll want to be able to see is, usually we think about prices going down as a good thing. For an entire economy, it's not necessarily a good thing. Here's the Great Depression right here in the early 30s, and we had negative inflation. Okay, so kind of the misconception is that people couldn't afford stuff because prices were too high. Well, the prices were too high because people didn't have any money. Okay, so actually incomes were so low people couldn't afford things because they didn't have any money, not because things got too expensive or more expensive. Okay, um, And then also in 2009, we have a situation where we had some negative inflation too. That goes back to the recession. Some refer to it as the Great Recession. Now, the way that they get these numbers or the prices to use is through what is referred to as the Consumer Price Index. And so basically, the Consumer Price Index, in layman's terms, is the government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they take a list of like 300 different products and um, they chart the price change in that. And the goal is to keep track of things that are like necessities that everyone buys. So, like milk, gasoline, even the price of like mortgages, as well as other types of food that maybe not everybody eats, like chicken and steak and those types of things. The things that they don't include are like Ferraris. Okay, they try to make it as accurate as possible, and so they chart those things. They put it into a formula. We don't need to know exactly how they do it, but they put it into a formula to try to get as accurate as possible, and then they come up with these prices. Okay, so what started and one thing you can see here is in 1914 they started, okay, and they just said, hey, we're starting with $10. All right, so what cost $10 in 1914 is now going to cost $259 in 2020. Okay, so you can see how prices have gone up over time. Back when you guys were born, 2000, 2001, maybe 2002, $177 is the same as $259 today. Okay, so anyway, you don't necessarily need to know those numbers. That's just another way to think about what we're showing you. Kind of the weird thing is that we can use the inflation rate to say the economy is doing good or bad in a percentage wise, but our brains don't think. Our brains don't think in percentages, right? They think like when we go and say gas prices went up by 20 cents, we don't say gas prices went up by 8%. We say they went up by 20 cents, right? And if we were looking at numbers and saying, hey, prices went up from $1.50 to $1.80, that is a certain amount of percent, right? 20%. We don't think that way either. So inflation is easy to look at and say, okay, the economy is doing well. It's 1.5%. Consumer price index is easy to say, okay, well, what does that 1.5% mean? Okay, well, the prices went up from a dollar or $100 to $101.50, right? And we consider that's not necessarily a big deal, right? As we wrap our head around it. Okay, so what causes it? We kind of mentioned to start also is we've got the demand side of things, and we've got the supply side of things. So the demand side means, hey, I have more money. Maybe that means banks are loaning out more money. That could increase the demand. It can also mean that people are earning more money. People have jobs. Okay, so we'll tie this into unemployment here tomorrow. And we have the supply side, right? The cost of producing things may make prices go up. So especially the price of fuel, maybe the price of land. Again, in San Francisco, California, especially, the price of land is extremely high, and the prices there are extremely high for homes where people are demanding all that land. And then we also have, you might hear what's referred to as the wage price spiral. We kind of been talking about the minimum wage, right? Where people earn higher wages, they start spending more money, things become more expensive. I'm going to demand higher wages again, and that kind of creates that spiral of prices going up. The price of gasoline, and usually we talk about the price of gasoline because it's such a necessity. Obviously, it affects where we can spend other money. Okay, so if you kind of focus around this time period here, in 2008 and 2009, gas prices went way up. Well, people were so worried about on the supply side of being able to supply stuff, as well as on the demand side of being able to afford stuff after I bought gasoline, that it was part of one of the causes of getting us into that recession. People didn't have money. So, for example, the RV industry, not only did people not have money to fill their own cars up with gas, but they were like, well, I can't buy an RV because I can't afford to fill it up with gas. And so Elkhart hit extremely hard during this time period. And we get into this recession where, again, unemployment gets really high. We'll see some stats for it when we talk about unemployment. But it was a tough time period. And again, gasoline is one of those things that affects how people behave, in the economy because we have to have gas to be able to get to work and ship our products. All right. Now, it's not perfect because, again, people get creative in how they substitute things. If we have a shortage of chicken or whatever, or there's a salmonella outbreak in chicken, we'll buy steak instead, or vice versa. Um, it doesn't take into account people buying in bulk. It doesn't take into account like new necessities. So like a cell phone is a necessity in 2020. In 2000, it really wasn't a necessity. And so sometimes it's a little bit behind on trying to keep track of what we have to have. Um, and again, sometimes quality changes too, as far as how long things last. Okay. At the end of the day, why it's bad is obviously we can't afford to buy more stuff. If we're on a fixed income, people on welfare programs, people on social programs such as Social Security, um, that are retired, fixed incomes get hit the hardest. It's going to lead to higher interest rates, meaning that borrowing money is more expensive, meaning that we can't buy as big of houses or nice of cars when we borrow money. And it also loses some efficiency, meaning that if we believe that prices are going to go up tomorrow, we're going to hurry to spend money today. If we think that prices are going to go down tomorrow, we're going to hold on to our money. Or if prices are going to go down next year, we're going to hold on to our money and try to save it for the long run. Okay, so it loses some efficiency there. Okay. Like I said, I know that that was real fast. I'm trying to respect your time here. And again, just kind of plugging some information into your heads as we're moving forward here, getting close to the end of the semester. Stay on top of things, and we will talk again about unemployment here soon.